now you can use apps like Opus, you can use Canva, you can use ChatGPT, Rud AI, CapCut to chop up those clips, to chop up that long form into clips to distribute it on different social media platforms with different messaging. So we do know that TikTok is used for news and information, again, for a specific demographic of a certain age. So you're able to like create content for that, create content for YouTube Shorts, create content for Facebook, create content for Instagram. It is a great way to save time, and it is a great way to really squeeze the juice of what you're doing to really hit home that messaging of being in that niche market. So that allows me to save time. It allows me to be more creative. Another thing that people really like to see is they love to see the behind the scenes, and they love to see the final polished product or service of what I'm talking about.
Welcome back to The Brand Behavior, the show that helps you crush your marketing goals without crushing your wallet. I'm your host, Jonte Delane, and boy, we do have a super packed, power packed episode for you today. You know, I just saw some fascinating stats. 94% of small businesses are planning to boost their marketing spend in the upcoming year, but there's a kicker. 47% of them also are working with less than $10,000 a year on their entire digital marketing budget. Talk about doing more with less, right? But that's exactly why we're here today. I brought together a team of experts to show you how to make every marketing dollar count. So let me introduce you to our marketing masterminds. First up, we have CJ. How are you doing today?
Hey, everybody. Very excited to be here and talk with like-minded folks. My name is CJ Johnson. I'm a decorated strategist, author, brand builder. I've worked with hundreds of brands from tech startups to small businesses to Fortune 500 companies, specialize in influencer marketing, content creation, and AI-powered tools. So can't wait to really dive deep with you guys.
Likewise. And we also have Tanya Smith from Stream Like a Boss. Tanya, how you doing?
Hey, I am doing fantastic, and I'm super excited and thrilled that I get a chance to be here. I am a video marketing strategist and the host of Stream Like a Boss TV, and it's primarily on YouTube, but we also broadcast on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. I typically do this weekly show to teach coaches and creators how to turn crickets into cash, is what I say, through high impact live streams and video podcasting. So thrilled and honored to be here to contribute to the conversation. We'll see how things go.
Awesome. And rounding out our powerhouse panel is Jason Fishman from DNA. Jason, how are you?
Doing great. Excited to be here and talk about this topic. My podcast is called Test, Optimize, Scale. Speaking of budgets, testing, seeing the right analytics, optimizing, looking for opportunities to scale is something that I'm always in discussions about. So to be here with Tanya and CJ, I've been looking forward to it. I also run a marketing agency called DNA. I've worked with over 900 brands, 500 of those around capital raising and boosting those budgets as part of the marketing campaign itself. So it's going to be a joy to participate.
Great. Now let's talk about why this matters right now. Essentially, marketing budgets have actually dropped from over 9% to over 7% of company revenue this year. But here's the exciting part. We're seeing small businesses getting incredibly creative. Over half are doubling down on social media ads, content marketing, and they're seeing some amazing results. Today, we're going to show you exactly how to join them. We'll cover everything from lean branding strategies to influencer marketing hacks that won't break the bank. Plus, each of our experts has brought their favorite money-saving tools to share with you. So grab your notebook, fire up your favorite note-taking app, or heck, just lean in a little bit closer to your speaker, because on this episode, we're about to save you thousands while helping you grow your brand like never before. So if you're ready, let's get this party started and dive right in. All right. So We're going to talk about building a strong identity on a budget. And I know a lot of this stuff may be keeping you up at night in terms of, trying to build that killer brand when your budget is really cozy, right? And in a recent study, it shows that brands with consistent presentation can increase revenue by 33%. But here's the thing, consistency doesn't have to mean expensive. So let's unpack this with our experts. CJ, I know you've been in the trenches with small businesses and various brands. What are the non-negotiables when it comes to a brand identity?
Yeah, absolutely. At the one of the first steps that you want to take with building a brand and making sure that you have a very clear thesis of what your brand identity is if you can explain it, your brand, how it benefits someone else very quickly. And a lot of times, this is like from the biggest brands in the world that have burned out. Most businesses fail under a year. To small businesses, typically when they have these like run-on sentences of what their brand is, and they're not quite clear on the messaging, and you're kind of like doing this song and dance of like, well, what is it? And you have more questions than answers. A good way to get clarity of thought is to write it out. Believe it or not, a lot of people are very good about writing out their business plans, but they're very like, for whatever reason, I'm sure everybody knows this, that's on here speaking with me. They're very hesitant about the marketing plan. They're always like kind of confused. They're always being pulled in different directions. But if you're able to have clarity of what your product or service provides for someone else, then you want to ask yourself, are there other competitors that are out there that are similar to mine? And then what's the type of voice that I want to have? It's a really good idea to even jot down like 4 or 5 of your favorite brands that you really love, even if it has nothing to do with what you're offering. So that way you can understand what the brand messaging style could eventually be like.
That makes sense. And Tanya, I know with your podcast and just your experience in working to, build personal brands, boost businesses, but for a brand or person that has a bootstrap budget, what's your secret sauce that's working to increase brand awareness and overall conversions without having a massive investment?
Yeah. Without having a massive investment or even having a massive audience to that factor, right? Because a lot of people start out and they feel like, well, I got to jump out the gate and have 10,000 followers in order to make any money or to be seen. And the fact is, as a small, what they call micro influencer now, which I know we're going to get into some topics around that, but as a smaller brand who is bootstrapping, you need to just get that clarity that CJ was talking about. You need to be clear on what your niche is so that you can be known for solving a specific problem or set of problems. And the more specific you can get, the more easily you'll find it to be able to show up and talk about topics around that problem and that solution that you offer over and over and over again. The consistency, to your point earlier, isn't that you have to be out every single day or every minute of the day, but you probably need to look like you are, meaning that you have a regular cadence for when you're developing and distributing content around that expertise that we're talking about. I think a big fail for a lot of folks is that we assume that we have this unlimited budget, and we're not Southwest Airlines. We're not, some of the bigger Sony or somebody else who has this huge R&D department and huge spend. We have the bootstrap. And because of that, we've got to get a lot more clear and not dive too deep into the, well, I'm the everything for everybody. You have to be clear on what you really want to put yourself out there to be. Where do you want to plant your flag so you stop chasing and have people find you?
That's great. And I really want to hone in on what you mentioned about those other brands in terms of identifying either what your competitors are doing or for the brands that have these large budgets, really reverse engineering what they're doing, right? I
Yes.
mean, let this, the science, the scientists do the science. Is that what they say? So that you can basically take cues from their playbook and adopt them when you are, for example, making content and trying to build out your brand. Jason, here's a real challenge for you. How do you keep your brand consistent across all channels when you're working with limited resources? Do you have any clever hacks there that you discovered?
Yeah, I do want to say this really all starts with the strategy and exactly as CJ's pointing out, like determining your brand based on what's in the industry, talking about positioning as Tanya is highlighting, and as you're saying, a competitor marketing audit and determining the channels and the content calendar, which I'm going to answer with here. It starts with that competitor marketing audit. Success leaves clues. As you're mentioning, I want to know exactly what competitors in the sense that they're going after the same target audience as me, what they're putting out on each of these channels, what are they running on social media, maybe on the paid side, definitely on organic, days and times of week they're getting the most engagement, what content types are getting that response, who's talking about them on these channels. I also search who's talking about them in the news. I look at the similar web. I'll look at their web analytics and get an understanding for some of the demographics and the traffic trends. I'll look at how they're ranking on search and there's SEMrush, SpyFu, various platforms. You could get a gauge there, all before getting into target audiences, marketing channels, and creative. The creative is really what you're pointing to there, where I want to figure out what does the content calendar look like. I don't want to leave it to chance and just determine every morning what am I going to talk about today. I can always add more pieces, current events, being able to put our brand voice on what's occurring. But I want to know, what experience am I providing my target audiences? What am I talking about in each day of the week, each week of the month, for at least a month at a time, with an idea of the direction of where it's going, especially as I talk about long form content throughout the course of the year. And being able to look at content partners there as well. So if it's a live event, if it's a webinar, if it's a podcast, even if it's a social post, can I have a collaborator on there? Can I tap into their audience? Not paying for it with advertising. I'm using my network to get out to their followers, their loyal, responsive follower base, and through those content discussions, there's a lot of platforms you could use. Sprout Social. There's a lot of platforms to manage that, but I actually like doing it manually at first because I could really pay more attention to what's generating the most momentum and do more of that once I do move to tools.
Now, let's talk about something that makes a lot of businesses nervous: influencer marketing. Right. Now, before anyone starts sweating about those six-figure influencer deals, here's something interesting. We know that micro influencers with roughly about 1,000, let's say 5,000 followers, actually have an average engagement rate of almost 9%, which is a lot higher compared to these mega influencers. So I want to explore how to tap into this gold mine without needing a gold mine of your own. Are there any specific tactics or hacks that you guys have done when working with influencer marketing that proved to be successful for any of the campaigns that you've run?
Yeah, you know what? Influencer marketing has evolved and changed so much. What is the definition of influencer marketing now is not necessarily the way it began. So even the philosophy of influencer marketing, that a lot of tactics that people use, is slightly outdated. It's evolving and changing every day. So Tiny made a really great point about that, about micro influencers. It doesn't necessarily matter about the number of influencers that you have. I think when people think of influencer marketing, they think of like Mr. Beast and Kylie Jenner, and they totally forget about the fact that like an influencer is someone that is providing information in the water cooler. Where's the water cooler right now? Social media, everywhere. We have influencers that aren't even that they don't even have faces. They don't have personas. It's still the egg there. No, actually, really, what it is right now is getting information out there faster than everyone else, and you don't have to be an influencer to do that. Right now, what we're seeing is we're seeing UGC content creators, right? And they're not influencers, but they have influence. And that is very, very, very cost effective. People also forget that there's a whole generation of people out there, a whole generation of kids, rather it be Generation Z, Generation Alpha, Generation Beta, whatever you want to call them, everybody that's under a certain age bracket. They want to be an influencer. They want to be a content creator. They want to do this for a living where they're just absolutely creating whatever they can. They would rather do that than take on a job at McDonald's. And the reason why I want to point that out is because the budget is absolutely under your own control. You do not need to have this huge, elaborate budget to hire an influencer or a content creator. What you need to do is understand what the objective is when you are hiring someone to speak on the behalf of your brand. What are you looking for? Are you looking for comments? Are you looking for likes? Are you looking for followers? Or are you looking to move some units? And if you're looking to move some units, oh, we can save some costs doing that. We don't need to get an expensive influencer when we can get a UGC creator on the TikTok marketplace for almost nothing. For almost nothing, they're getting a sliver of a market share. It's not even coming out of your pocket. That's free. So there's all sorts of amazing tactics that you can do now.
I agree, and I think one place to start that's most cost effective when working with influencers or people of influence is to start with your actual customer base, right? Identify who's a part of your customer profile or your customer database that has a sphere of influence, whether that could be specific following in their network. They already have patronized your business or your brand, so they can become an advocate for you. And the cost and barrier of entry for building those relationships are minimal, right? And I think also when we look at other cost effective hacks, if you will, when working with influencers, is white labeling ad campaigns. And this is actually a strategy that we implement for clients that are in special categories. So, CBD, as an example, cannabis is one of those categories. But when working with influencers to amplify some messages or content that a brand has that cannot traditionally be, amplified through ads, those influencers can essentially amplify that content through their own account, right? And so, the client pays the cost for that, pass on that to the influencer, and they'll essentially be able to circumvent their ad campaigns, right? And all this revolves around influencer marketing. And then I think when also working with other brands that really want to work with mega influencers, but they just don't have the budget to do so, you can actually just place ads against their content, right? I mean, if there's a YouTuber that has has a popular YouTube channel that your target audience is engaging with, well, if you can use Google Display Ads to actually connect with your target audience through that influencer's channel or specific video, as an example. So those are all some key options when you just really don't have the budget to truly engage at a macro level with some of these very large influencers. Have you guys tried any of that, or anything you guys want to add to some of those tactics there?
Well, I'll let Jason speak in terms of the way that you two are speaking because you're more agency driven. I'm actually one of the micro influencers. so I can speak from that angle and say that I do have sponsors and various brands come to me to say, "Hey, we've noticed how well, first of all, how consistent you are showing up. And we've noticed that when you do show up on your live streams every week, you have a very dedicated community. They have a certain lingo. They have certain things that they know about being a part of the community that helps them all to gel. They trust you. They trust your word. And when you recommend something, they all say, okay, well, I'm heading over there right now to go get that thing. I think that if you are if you're on the other side of what we've been talking about, and you are someone who's looking to become an influencer, a lot of the formula has to do with that consistency, building trust, sharing and giving value first, and not thinking about, oh, I can't wait till I get the sponsorship, or I can't wait until I partner with big brands. It is more about how can I give and how can I serve and how can I show up in such a way that people really get to know me as the human that I am. Because I think that's a big part of any type of marketing and sales right now is very people centric, because there is a lot of tech. There are a lot of AI automations and all kinds of other things out there. And so when people are ready to buy, they want to buy from a person. So I do see the power of micro influencers, and I definitely saw that shift. As CJ was mentioning, I saw that shift happening even within the past couple of years, especially after 2020, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot more people started to show up. I think that video is one of the central ways that we do that.
Yeah, and I know CJ, I've been following you on social media and seeing your content, and I know that you have brand deals and so on, right? And so from a in, being an influencer, is there a way that brands can possibly negotiate with you in order to brands negotiate with you if they have limited budgets? I mean, what are the things that you would look for
Yeah.
ultimately to work with a brand that may have a limited budget? Is it affinity? Is it you've used
Yeah.
the brand before? What?
Well, that's a really good question, and it actually reminds me of a hack that can work for the influencer and work for the brand. What's working right now is that brands are leveraging their brand reputation. It's happening a lot in media. So, for example, with GQ, who I'm associated with, and Adweek, who I'm also associated with, we would prefer to hire an intern who is an influencer as also our social media manager. And so they're the ones that are on camera reporting a lot of things on TikTok and Instagram. So leveraging that brand reputation, it doesn't matter if you're a local business either, right? If you're like a restaurant down the street and you notice that there's some good looking folks that are always eating your food and you're like, are you an influencer? You're gonna see it, right? Because everybody now is taking selfies. You can leverage that. On the other side of that, as an influencer, Tanya raised a really amazing point. Consistency. Everybody loves to see consistency. So what happens is that when you're consistent and you're growing in that niche, then you're building more leverage. So when a brand comes to me for an influencer partnership, well, I'm able to use my skill set and my experience to my advantage, where I say something along the lines of, yeah, less pay up front, but more back end with something else, or a stake in partnership or something that really fits into your goals. This is the reason why, in the very beginning of this conversation, I said you should be very clear on your brand identity. That goes the same for an influencer as well. Like, what are the goals of an influencer? And typically, the goal of an influencer is not to continuously be an influencer. Like you don't become an influencer just to keep hawking products on social media. Eventually, you're going to want to start your own business, and this is a great way to start building out that portfolio.
Yeah. And Jason, I know you may have worked with some influencers in the past. What is your experience? Where do you think influencer marketing is going? And how can businesses with small budgets begin to leverage influencers for their product or service?
Sure. And I remember a time in 2015, 2016 where influencer posts were low cost, high return on, marketing spend. Audiences were eating it up. It was a lot of fun. And we had a product just around that. Over time, I found that some of the audiences were becoming a bit more fatigued, that the prices were definitely going up. And what I kind of highlight, and Tanya was talking about, micro influencer, we'll work with nano influencers. Sometimes people of influence can produce a stronger result than even the larger, more productized influencer marketing rate cards that you may see. And I think it goes back to strategic partnerships and being able to build relationships with people in your industry who have a large audience and may be able to promote you, having the right tools. On my podcast, I've had influencers on and they're promoting the podcast. There's a lot of organic things you could do around that. There's no shortage of influencer networks out there, too many in some verticals. and they'll have programs of, pay X amount of dollars. They may be outside of your budget. There's platforms with content creators and more nano micro influencers. One's called Collabster, and you can find very low cost entry points. You could look to build relationships with some larger, let's say, mid-sized influencers in person at events, and maybe find some collaborative things you could do together so that it's not their normal, hey, I need this rate, but maybe they believe in what you're doing and have a genuine interest. I know some brands who just send product out and get influencers to volunteer or just naturally promote. So there's a lot of different ways to skin it that are more organic, if you will. But I would say across the board on any of these, we're performance marketers. We work with brands that, every budget, every dollar matters. One budget produces the next. So we're looking at the performance metrics. You have to set the right parameters. You have to know the right goals. How much traffic am I anticipating from this activation? Realistically, what type of results, what type of signups, purchases, what have you, whatever my KPI, my key performance indicator is, am I looking to track? How am I going to actually separate out other marketing channels and get a sense of what occurred during that period of time, and then test out a few. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Test out, variants of which types of influencers as well. Maybe one's more popular in one category. Maybe one has a smaller but very engaged audience, and then do more of what's working over time. But if you're just wowed by the name, the individual, the brand that's involved, and don't get me wrong, it's great to have them associated with the brand. You could be confused as you don't see performance off that first blast, and make sure to focus on repetition.
Yeah. What's interesting is when you mentioned strategic partnership, that really rung a bell for me. And I say that because there could be people or brands that really have $0 for influencer marketing, but with a little bit of elbow grease, they're able to conjure up some strategic partnerships, right? And I think there's some alignment there with strategic partnerships and influencer marketing, because you could possibly find a partner where you can create co-branded campaigns, you can split ad spend, right, and so on and so forth. So that could be a viable option if you have absolutely zero to spend on influencer marketing. Yeah. Now, we talked a lot about content as well, right? From a influencer standpoint, creating consistent content so that you can be recognized by potential brands and who want to partner with you. Or if you are a brand looking to build out your brand equity, so you have people that are influencers that actually just want to work with you, right? But consistency is the key. So, what are some ways that you can create consistent content for with a limited budget that would build that brand that influencers ultimately want to work with you, or a strategic partner would ultimately want to partner with you?
I
Any
guess
insight there?
I'm going to be the champion for video, of course, because it's what I teach. But I specifically think when it comes to content, one of the reasons why I think video is so powerful right now, besides the fact that a lot of the platforms are looking for video, is that it hits on all of the different cylinders, because it's hitting the emotional cylinder. You're seeing the expressions and the things that are going on visually. You're hearing the audio from that content. You're also potentially using the written text format of that content because it can be transcribed. So there's so many different ways that you can multiply excuse me, from a video and turn that into content that helps you to stay visible consistently. Stories, I think you referred to this, not quite in the question, but you had kind of given us a little bit of a heads up on this. But I think the video is also powerful for sharing stories and creating that connection that is giving people an opportunity to get to know you as a brand, and also creating real, authentic, genuine insight into what's going on behind the scenes if you choose to do that. So I think one of the ways to do it, and it's affordable now because a lot of people use this thing right here that's already expensive, right? You don't have to have all the gear and all the studios set up. You literally can use your phone to create it. So, from an affordability standpoint, this is the number one device right now when it comes to creating that type of content. So, that's
Yeah.
my answer.
Yeah. And CJ, you're a master of content creation and making it work over time for you. Share with us your secret sauce. How do you take one piece of content and turn it
Yeah.
into a content machine?
Oh my God, I love three times the return on investment on anything, and I think Tanya and Jason both said this, especially Jason when you're talking about cross-functional situations. I will use like an interesting hack, which I think is going to become a larger deal, not just for entrepreneurs and creators, but also for brands. It is the video podcast. And what you can do, which I mean, obviously all of you already know this, but for those of you who are listening or watching, you don't know this. Video podcasts are really powerful because it's a long form tool that you can use to not only promote your messaging, promote your brand, but also use as an opportunity for cross promotional tactics, right? Then when you export that video podcast, you can upload that onto different platforms just strictly through the audio and strictly to the video. Now you can use apps like Opus, you can use Canva, you can use ChatGPT, Rud AI, CapCut to chop up those clips, to chop up that long form into clips to distribute it on different social media platforms with different messaging. So we do know that TikTok is used for news and information, again, for a specific demographic of a certain age. So you're able to like create content for that, create content for YouTube Shorts, create content for Facebook, create content for Instagram. It is a great way to save time, and it is a great way to really squeeze the juice of what you're doing to really hit home that messaging of being in that niche market. So that allows me to save time. It allows me to be more creative. Another thing that people really like to see is they love to see the behind the scenes, and they love to see the final polished product or service of what I'm talking about. So right there, I have three pillars of what I'm creating content for, and I have an unlimited distribution system. All of this none of this is expensive. All of this is very cost effective. In some cases, free.
Yeah. And so what's interesting there is that I think most businesses can leverage these technologies that are seemingly, nominal in cost, but then focus on creating great content through these pieces of technology, i.e., your phone, right? Your cell phone. I think it's starting to shift from budget, not having enough budget, to really not having enough time, right, to create content. And I think that that's really interesting because even for myself, CJ, you mentioned this in terms of how you're able to repurpose a podcast as an example, right? One of the strategies around this podcast is to create more content because I don't have time to create content. So this here is content that I'm creating. Building networking and relationships with all of you wonderful people that are on this podcast today, and then be able to repurpose this content for you all, right? Because now this content you could also use this content as well for all the tidbits, the insights, so on and so forth, and we all can just share in the amplification of that, right? And so for us, it's certainly my biggest challenge as a CEO of an agency is time, not having enough time in the day to create all of this content. So with the right resources that are nominal in cost, you can create awesome pieces of content, but it's really just leveraging the tactics that'll allow you to create content at scale. And I think that is really the most significant concern. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
Yeah, I so glad you brought up time. That's what came to mind when thinking about budget. If you could do a lot of this stuff without budget, what the budget allows for is to contract to hire other people to do it on your behalf, to buy media, buy the placements, buy the visibility. But if you do enough outreach, if you do enough posts, if you do enough, PR connections, you could get media. It's buying the media, so you're buying the time, and there are growth hacks. I think to growth hack, you first have to have a growth model and you find ways to do it quicker. So if we're talking about incorporating tools to produce more content and produce it quicker, I think that's good. I really like CJ's recommendation. I mean, video podcast, any type of long form content that you could splinter out and use across other channels and make it engaging in each of those shorter formats is huge. I can't recommend that enough. I mean, I love doing my podcast. I know you guys love doing content like this as well. I never have a need to stop it. And a secondary benefit of that is I can reach out to groups in my space and say, hey, do you want to be on? And they'll likely promote. And then I'm getting media, I'm getting traffic, I'm getting attention. That's just one example. I know people who do it at events at their office and open office hours. I mean, there's a lot of different community things you could do in person. There's a lot of things you could do with live broadcast, social, but inviting others to collaborate in that, whether they promote or not, and most of them will because they have their own marketing initiatives and they need to show their face and that they're pulling the brand, and there's individuals involved. But you got to be able to put the right amount of time, the right structures. There's virtual assistants you could use at very low budget to have outreach going all day, or a lot of different actions taken around content creation. So it's a matter of where your time is going to be most valuable, what you can assign and what you need to prioritize, and what tools can help you accelerate along the way.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when thinking about being creative, sometimes the smallest budgets can produce the most innovative campaigns, right? That's what we're talking about, and really trying to use that creative to punch above your weight class, so to speak. CJ, how can small businesses use local partnerships or community involvement as a cost-effective marketing strategy?
Oh, wow. I think that definitely ties into a lot of what we've already been discussing. I think I really, really think that thinking outside of the box and being creative works to your advantage. And a lot of times when we say that there's not enough time or there's not enough money, it's because there isn't clarity of thought of like what that brand messaging looks like. And everybody so far has explained like, hey, I'm doing this because it's going to amplify this and it's going to tie into this. And there's not a lot of thought that's put into that. So when you have that thought process of like this will tie into this and will lead into that, it makes it very easy to find those community-based strategic partnerships. A lot of times we just don't think outside of the box and kind of see like the answers that are in front of us. There's a great example. I can't remember the name of this company. It's a ramen company, and they're going viral on TikTok because they have somebody doing this man on the street type of segments where they connect with people and they ask them like very thoughtful, heartbreaking questions like, when did you like last fall in love? And when did you do this and X, Y, and Z? And it doesn't talk about anything about the product. And the very last shot is the logo of this ramen company, and they're going viral. And when you see the comments are like, I forgot that this was even an ad. I didn't even know this was an ad. This was pretty clever. And by the way, I'm very hungry for ramen. So there's creative ways in which you can use the community to your advantage because it was very much like a Humans of New York type of situation, and it was based in New York, and they were just going around in different areas. Crumble is a client of mine, and I think they do a great job of also tying in community based objectives. They love to do that pop up situation and be like, "Come here, we got these like new cookies, like everybody line outside the door. We're the hottest like new thing out here with the cookies. We want you to take photos and videos with the cookies." So all the girls are like, and like lining up, lines outside the door just to grab a cookie, just so they can do a selfie with the cookie and the crumble box
Mhm.
and take it home and make creative content out of it. So when you understand your brand and your brand messaging, you can make it fun and you can make it creative. Now, all of those strategies, like I can't imagine. And I know this with Crumble, but I can't imagine it be like this huge mega budget of like, okay, we have to like have these glossy designs and hire all these influencers. No, it's just you're just having these ideas that really resonate with where we are as a society right now. Again, if you know how you're going to benefit someone else with your product or service, then you're going to be able to use those emotional tugs to pull you in, and that invites community, that invites other collaborators. But we have to understand that the moment of time in which we live in right now, all of us, the whole human species, is like we're looking for bigger picture answers. We're looking to be heard and seen on all sorts of different ways. I know that sounds existential, but that does impact businesses, and people are saying that more and more and more. I care about your values. I care about where you're sourcing your materials. And you're able to tie the community into that conversation and use that as leverage.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that your creativity is essentially some currency, right? That would help with any deficient budget. Um, when you think about telling your story or creating this brand narrative, like the ramen example that you talked about, that's all creative currency, right? There's really no dipping into the budget for that type of creativity, right? It's just making sure that we're extracting that creativity out of your team and whoever's leading the content. And I know, Tanya, you have experience obviously with storytelling and creating brand narratives and so on. But what type of advice would you give a business that is looking to create that brand narrative and create these emotional connections with customers without spending a lot on advertising?
Ask them how they appreciated and enjoyed the whatever the thing is that you sold, right? So customer testimonials are powerful. And I think sometimes we forget that we can easily just ask that question. So, how did it go? And do these, again, video, although I love audio and text too when it comes to testimonials, but capturing people where they are happy and joyful and they finally got the transformation they were looking for because they used your product, program, or service, that's huge. And that's free because they're ready. They're ready to talk about it. So I think really gathering that type of information. And I do at some point want to come back to your mention of time because I had a thought that I don't want to forget, but we can come back to that after we get through with this part.
No worries, no worries. All right, so for our final topic today, I want to talk about what might be the most powerful marketing asset, and it's completely free. It's your personal brand, right? And here's what's wild: 82% of consumers say that they're more likely to trust a company when their senior executives are active on social media. And your personal brand isn't just about you; it's essentially a business accelerator. Jason, how can business leaders balance their personal brand with their company's brand, especially when the resources are limited?
Sure, sure. I believe people buy from people, and a leader, let's say, of an agency, an up and coming brand, it's that individual pulling the brand in many of these cases. I know I could point out the CEOs, the founders of the top tech companies on the investor marketing campaigns that I work on. It's prospects investing in that individual and in the team, and we really have to make sure they're personable through all of the content. You could enroll a team. You can have your marketing folks working on this. You could look to front load some of it. I know some of the agencies who can build out influencer type campaigns, thought leadership campaigns. They'll have the client come in for 4 hours at the beginning of the month, record them, take some clips, and then distribute it throughout the course of the month. Ideally, you get in good habits of not only building a content calendar and determining when you're going to talk about but you're also pulling out your phone, as Tanya said. I mean, hey, these things record 4K. I mean, you can be putting out clips and they get the most engagement. When we're running social advertising campaigns, a lot of times the selfie videos outperform the high gloss, high production video. So if you're constantly adding to your story, if you're putting in meaningful grid posts, as your prospective or current customers, clients are searching around, they're going to see that, and they may feel like they have a relationship with you, even though they're only consuming your digital content. And I think that's what's behind it. It's easier for us to trust in an individual than just a logo.
Yeah. And Tanya, what are some key elements of a strong personal brand, and how can one develop these on a limited budget?
One of them is to, we keep talking about consistency, consistency, consistency. And I think the secret to that is that from a personal brand standpoint, because it does two things. Not only does it lift your brand, but it also helps you keep sanity, right? If you are leveraging the tools and the technology that are available right now. So the automation, look, a whole store of AI custom agents that can do different things and has specific responsibilities and roles. That's how I get my video content production done. That's how I'm able to go live every week and to multiply my content, as CJ was talking about, into a video podcast, a blog, a LinkedIn newsletter, a this, a that, right? It's because of being smart about tying all these things together so that you can show up in a positive way. So I think right now it's required we have to sit down and say, okay, as a brand and even as an agency, I'm going to look at three things. I'm going to either act on the thing, if it's a task, I'm going to automate it, or I'm going to assign it to somebody else. And if we have that type of structure and that type of thinking around everything we do, the brand visibility is like gold. It just happens because we're setting ourselves up for success.
Yeah. And CJ, any more thoughts on that? I mean, building a personal brand,
Yeah.
what are some key pieces of advice that you would provide someone that's looking to build one on a shoestring budget?
Absolutely. I mean, Tanya nailed it. I would just add on to that that people really, really resonate with behind the scenes, especially the failures of you trying to do something. In fact, I think all of us have seen some sort of viral story of somebody having a breakdown and crying on TikTok or Instagram, and it led to them creating a fortune. People really can resonate with people trying to follow their dreams and build businesses. So if you're able to showcase the behind the scenes journey of your brand, it's also a subconscious cue for whoever is consuming your content that, oh, they're actively doing this. So for example, you're working on your ad agency and you're like, man, I'm having a tough time with this client. Like they're kind of killing me right now, but I love them. I love the client. I'm not going to lose. I'm going to do whatever I can for them. People love to hear that, and the next time they're doing something, they're going to be like, "Hey, I know you're busy. And I know you got that crazy ass client, but could you help me out with this? Like, we got budget." Um, and there's so many amazing stories out there now of people using their personal brands and tying and growing that, growing their businesses by using that. Gymshark is a fantastic example of that. How they were able to really tie in the fitness and wellness community. People just wanting to like join up in groups and work out together. Liquid Death. If you're not familiar with Liquid Death, uh, there are these tall cans that look like they're beer or like energy drinks, and it's just water. That's a brilliant branding technique, and they do all of their branding and marketing in house. And they're just now showing the behind the scenes. Sorry, guys, I have a husky who's he's like, you guys are talking about personal branding. Can I get in on that? And he's trying to like play like give me a tennis ball right now. He was like knocked out for like the previous conversation. Now he wants to hang out. And then lastly, there was a company called Dude Wipes. If you haven't heard of that, it's a very popular brand now, but they started out with just like joking around about like having these wipes of like you wiping your butt and like these dude jokes, these crude dude jokes. And over time, people just thought it was so hilarious that they just kept buying their product more and more and more and more. And now they're like you can buy them anywhere, any Walmart location in America. They scaled very quickly. So it's just like showing that behind the scenes touch, having fun, and obviously what everybody already said, consistency.
Absolutely. All right.
And publish personal content as well too. I think of Mark Zuckerberg. Uh, wake surfing. I think that's when he became popular. Like that photo right there. You know, if you start talking about, hey, I snowboard on the weekends, I like to play golf Friday afternoons, you'll start finding these connections of your target audience. Don't think it needs to be completely buttoned up and professional. Your audience can really resonate with that.
Yeah, and I think that was certainly strategic as well on behalf of Meta's team. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, he has completely just revolutionized his brand image. I mean, now
Yeah.
he's wearing
Sure.
chains and he has the curly hair now and
Mm-hmm.
a little
Mm-hmm.
tan and stuff like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
he just completely changed his whole persona. And I think that's because, people, it really goes back to what we've been saying over and over again in this conversation. Overall, people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust,
Yep.
Right.
right? If you look like a robot, right? I'm
Exactly.
shooting at
Well,
Mark, at Mark
what are your
Zuckerberg right now.
overall? What is everybody's thoughts about like someone like Elon, who's the wealthiest man on the planet, and he hops on social media, and the stock of Tesla and SpaceX go fluctuate depending on what he puts out there. I mean, I think that's the the best example of personal branding. What are your thoughts on him and how that personal branding looks for his brands?
I oh man, I don't even know if I should speak on this. I
I
probably
know.
have
I
to.
was just sitting like, I'm gonna just be quiet.
I feel like
We try to
my
be
my Tesla's gonna
objective.
stop working
Yeah.
just all of a sudden. But no, I do, to your point, CJ. I do think that is a great case study example on how you're able to leverage your personal brand for the benefit or detriment of
Yeah.
the business, right? And I feel like depending upon a number of factors, what side of the aisle you're on, your socioeconomic status, so on and so forth, you may have a differing opinion, but I think at the end of the day, it's either dumb or brilliant what he's doing. And I would happen to lean probably more toward the brilliant side only because it's getting attention. And I feel like we have to give more credit, even though I can appreciate the work ethic of Elon Musk. I don't agree with everything that he says, but I do think by just because we're talking about him, right, in this conversation is going to add more awareness to what he's doing, and even some credibility as well. And so it's a difficult observation, but it really stems from where we are as a society, what's important, what's not, what's really keeping our attention, what's exciting us as consumers and people in society and so on. So I can go in deeply into
Mm-hmm.
that, but that's a whole nother podcast. All right. A whole nother podcast.
No, I thought that was
But
a brilliant answer.
That was a
Well
brilliant
said.
answer.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So, but let's actually move on to our next segment, which is somewhat tied into what we're talking about, and it's essentially called the bad, bold, and brilliant segment. And essentially, I'm going to be presenting you all with three examinations of familiar brands that have done some type of campaign or execution, and I would like your feedback to see if it's bad, bold, or brilliant. Sound good?
Okay.
All
Let's do
right.
it.
First up is the Dollar Shave Club. Now, it's one of the most famous examples of a successful low budget marketing campaign. It's essentially, they had a viral video in 2012 where it released a humorous YouTube video that cost only about $4,500 to produce. It quickly went viral, garnering millions of views and captivating a subscribed user base, and really catapulted the Razor company to fame. So I want to ask you all, is this campaign bad, bold, or brilliant?
I mean, brilliant for them. It worked out. It worked out really well. Like Dollar Shave Club is the blueprint for growth marketing for back in the day.
Yeah.
And the CFO was a client of mine a few years ago, and he used to talk a lot. That they would talk a lot about CPAs and the cost per acquisition, and really talk about how those growth marketing strategies were very cost effective. They could just see how it worked really well. And I think I know Jason was talking about growth marketing earlier. Growth marketing is still evolving and changing. What you can do now is quite different than what you can do previously, and I just think it was brilliant.
I loved the video. I saw so many brands model their introductory, their profile videos off of it. Brilliant, just on the video alone. And then the numbers behind it, they became a unicorn. So brilliant. And I
Absolutely.
was a subscriber for years.
All right.
I'm also a customer. Yeah. So brilliant because of what Jason just said, right?
Wait,
So
that
it's
I'm also a
memorable.
customer. That's what Hair Club, right?
Hair
Yeah,
Club for
No,
Men,
I
yeah.
knew that. I knew that. Me and CJ.
that's right.
All right. Next up, we're going to talk about Airbnb's Craigslist integration. So, in its early days, Airbnb faced the challenge of attracting both hosts and guests to its platform. So, to tackle this, Airbnb leveraged Craigslist as a cost effective marketing channel by creating a tool that allowed Airbnb users to cross post their listings on Craigslist with just a few clicks. The company tapped into Craigslist's large user base without significant marketing cost. Now, was this campaign bad, bold, or brilliant? What are your thoughts?
At what period of time, because I'm not familiar with this particular case study, but at what period of time was Craigslist, like what was the era that they were in? Because that will inform whether or not I think it's bad or bold.
Yeah,
Craigslist, that's a dangerous connection, right? If you're mixing the two of those things, you're talking about residency, and then you're talking about the potential for what came to be known for Craigslist is that there were a lot of predators in that space. So depending on what era this actually happened, I'm kind of like, ugh.
that's a great point. No, that's a great point, and I think it's aligned with what we talked about earlier in terms of establishing strategic partnerships. And if you don't have a major budget, you can focus on establishing those strategic partnerships. So I think this was sort of a hack that Airbnb did by integrating Craigslist to help amplify the bookings on their platform. And I think it's one thing that Craigslist wouldn't necessarily be mad about, right? So I think it's just leveraging another channel that where their user base most likely resides. So I think that's connected to what we mentioned earlier about the strategic partnership.
Well, if it's
Yeah.
strategic partnership that we're looking at with that situation, I'm going to say bold, but I still lean towards that's a crapshoot in my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm with you,
No, I hear
Tanya. It'd
that.
be hard to tell my wife, "Hey, I booked us a place off Craigslist. It's
Yeah.
Airbnb,
Yeah,
but through Craigslist."
yeah.
Even that association, and if I was a host, I'd be a bit more uncomfortable if I was getting business from there. I don't know enough about the results. It could be brilliant, and I just don't see it and the numbers. But with everything we've talked about with brand, I mean, CJ brought up great points about what your audience should experience when they're looking at your brand. I think it's risky at best.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm with Jason and Tanya. I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna be the one to say it. Everybody, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's great for Craigslist because they
Yeah.
get to be associated with Airbnb. Not a great look for Airbnb. I will say this though, Airbnb. What they did with the wildfires of like giving people places to stay. I love that. I love that about Airbnb, but
Hmm.
Craigslist, no, tiny spot on. Predator Central. We can.
All right, so let's go on to our last examination: Cards Against Humanity's Black Friday stunt. So, Cards Against Humanity is known for its unconventional marketing tactics, and they essentially launched a unique campaign on Black Friday of 2015. So, instead of offering discounts or promotions, the company simply ran a Black Friday hole stunt where they essentially dug a massive hole and live streamed it on their website. So, the campaign ultimately encouraged people to donate money to keep digging the hole with no clear purpose or end goal. Do you think that this was bad, bold, or brilliant?
I
And
think it was bold.
I'll give you the results after.
I think it was
I get your
bold. I think
opinion.
that's a fun tactic right there. That's fun.
Yeah, and right now, look, people are watching YouTube videos where somebody's just sitting in a corner for hours. So digging a hole, I guess that's hey, right along those. It's bold and it could have been brilliant depending on the results, like CJ said.
Yeah. Well, despite its absurdity, the stunt generated a widespread media coverage and a lot of social media buzz, but they also had donations total over $100,000.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We need to dig more holes, I
We need
guess.
to
I
dig more
know, right?
holes. All right. All
I
right.
can go dig some holes in my backyard right now.
Right. Live streaming.
$100,000.
Where I come from, digging holes is a negative connotation. So I guess.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
yeah.
All right. So this is where the rubber meets the road, folks. It's time for our favorite segment, tools you cannot live without. So this could be any tool, tactic, process, app that you can't live without, either for your personal or professional lives. But I'll give you guys an opportunity to provide that tool for you. So whoever wants to go first can.
Well, for my investor marketing campaigns, I go on a website called King's Crowd. I do a report on it every Monday. I can't live without it. It shows me the results of every group that's raising capital online using regulation crowdfunding or similar filings. And success leaves clues. Those competitor marketing audits, I dive in. If it's non-investor marketing, I would say Facebook ad library. I don't know if that's a common answer, something you'd expect, but same concept. I want to see what other brands are doing right now that's producing results from the same target audiences I'm going after. Even if I'm not going to use Meta, or let's say not advertise there, there's something about the messaging or visuals that I can incorporate to a similar campaign.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I'm going to say Cast Magic, and it's spelled exactly like it sounds. It's a tool that automatically takes my YouTube videos. So whenever I'm done with a live stream, or it takes my coaching calls, or it takes anything that I've created with video or audio media, and it converts it into text format, but not just text format. It transcribes it and then takes that transcript, and I can create something called a magic chat, which basically is a set of templates of the different types of content I want it to turn that transcript into. So that's my lifesaver. It's one of those things that helps me to automate quickly when I'm trying to produce multiple pieces of social media from that singular piece of video, right? Yeah, it's a big deal. Every day, use it.
Nice.
For me, it's CapCut. That's an awesome mobile editor. It's very popular amongst the TikTok generation because it exports directly to TikTok. But what's so awesome about CapCut is that it has a teleprompter. There are AI tools, including AI generated avatars that look just like you and me. And there's all sorts of effects that you can do. So if you're looking to do professional editing that's very quick. As somebody who uses a lot of professional tools, this is definitely a cost saver and a time saver. And it's tied to ByteDance, so I don't know how much longer it's going to be around. But right now, it's my go-to.
Nice. Nice. All right. And so before we wrap up this episode, I want to make sure that everyone knows all about these amazing guests, where they can contact them, some of their service offerings, other types of incentives that they want to provide the listeners. So I'll have any one of you go first. Tell us a little bit more about where people can contact you and what do you have to offer.
Okay, I guess I'll go. Tanya Smith here again. Streamlikeaboss.tv. And if you go to streamlikeaboss.tv/links, you can hook up wherever you prefer to play. So if you prefer to play on Facebook, or if you prefer to play on YouTube, LinkedIn, etc., all of those links are there. And what I tend to do right now, we're actually in the middle of the second of a series of four. Well, we're getting ready to go into the second of a series of 4 challenges where we're breaking down how to actually leverage live stream marketing. Like, how do you get started, and how do you just stay consistent? And what's the formula for multiplying that content into other formats? So I just love building communities that are responsible and that are respectful of others. And so I'm very clear in the way in which I surround myself with people and give and serve. So yeah, streamlikeaboss.tv.
Awesome, Tanya. Thank you. Thank you. CJ, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, you can visit me at www.cjjohnsonjr.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, CJ Johnson Jr., and you can find me on all of the socials. And for me, I love to connect with other people about different ways that we can build brands, and just like any sort of like advice that you're looking for. I also have a book. I published a book. I forgot to plug that. I should probably
Nice.
plug that. The McGuire Method. It's a self-help book. It's all about work-life balance, especially in today's age. And it's available at Barnes& and Nobles, Amazon, Walmart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I'll see you out there.
Awesome. Last but not least, Jason.
Nice. I'm going to be checking out those sites and buying
Yeah.
the book right after this. But you could find me, digitalnicheagency.com. You could find me on LinkedIn. I am responsive there. Test, optimize, scale. Find the podcast on YouTube or anywhere you enjoy audio channels.
Awesome. Awesome. So just to wrap it up, make sure you check out Tanya's Stream Like a Boss podcast. CJ has a book coming out. Go ahead and connect with him on that. Jason as well. Make sure you connect with him on LinkedIn, where he has, I'm sure, a great deal of content there. Of course, as you know, I am Jonte Delane, founder and chief strategist at Digital Delane. And as always, if you're looking to level up your brand game, Digital Delane is here to help you bring your vision to life. Head over to digitaldelane.com for more information about how we can help you stand out in a crowded marketplace. And if you found this valuable, do me a quick favor. Please hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. The 2 minutes of your time will help other marketers find these amazing insights that we're dropping each and every episode. And if you want to continue this conversation, join us over at digitaldelane.com/podcast, where we'll have all the links, resources, and tools mentioned in today's show, plus some exclusive bonus content you couldn't find that we couldn't fit into this episode. And remember, marketing magic isn't just about big budgets. It's about big ideas and smart execution. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, and keep growing those brands. Bye for now.